Somebody's phone's going off. Yeah. Who's that? That's outrageous.
That's Steinmo.
And I turned it off. Right now, the farmers are surrounding Paris with trucks because they've been subsidized more than anybody in the world except for maybe American farmers. They don't want that cut. And so what you might call austerity, and I don't think it's actually come under those terms, but they're pissed as hell because they've been benefiting from a system that they had political advantage because of it wasn't gerrymandering in the American sense, but the overrepresentation of rural districts and rural areas has given them more and more subsidy. And so they're 2.5% of the population, but they are angry as hell because now food's coming in from abroad, they want to support it, etc. So nobody likes to lose benefits. That's a fact.
So I'll give you another example of this. Remember the yellow jackets in France?
Yeah.
Right? So that's another like populist thing, right? Well, if you actually look into what they were concerned with, it's pretty straightforward. The French government tried to put a carbon tax on the economy. And French business said, no, not us. So in order to basically get the carbon tax, they put it on ordinary consumers, and they buried it in a budget, and it was 5 years before it became active. And then suddenly, the people there's no train links to the small towns outside Paris unless you're on one of the metro lines. All the people that commute into work, suddenly their diesel prices were going through the roof. At the same time, maritime diesel was exempt, industry was exempt, and the money that were taken from the carbon tax was actually going into a fund to give to the biggest French companies to help them cheapen their labor costs to be more internationally competitive. So when the Yellow Jackets said it's the elites, they're out to screw us to benefit themselves, that's not populist rhetoric. That's actually a very accurate rendition of what happens. Right? So one of the common threads here in the academic study of populism is, it's this thin ideology, and it's about this big man who comes along and he pulls the wool over the eyes of people. No, sometimes it's actually people harnessing the fact that the elites literally have run off with everything and are screwing everyone else. And when that happens, you get a reaction which can be very ugly, but is actually a genuine reaction.
I did a study a couple of years ago. I think we had 3,500 respondents to a set of questions we gave them essentially a simplified U.S. budget with both taxes and spending on both sides, and then asked them, they spent about 15 minutes trying to adjust the budget from, they knew what it was currently and what they would prefer to see. And one of the things that was really, really interesting, we divided them up. If you look at them as Trump voters and Clinton voters, if you look specifically at those groups, there really wasn't that much difference in what they wanted. And one thing there was a lot of agreement on was that they felt that taxes on the wealthy are too high and there was too much inequality in America. These are Trump voters and Clinton voters.
That's fascinating. Okay, and so what do you think is leading to the hard right politics in Israel?
That's a whole kettle of fish on its own. I mean, one of my favorite lines about Israel is it's a travel agency that failed to become a state. So I don't think that we could really put that in the same sort of camp. I mean, it's the last settler colonial society in the world. It was founded in 1948. It's at the same time as the UN, at exactly the moment when the UN said, you can't do that anymore. There was an incomplete civil war. That has never been resolved. That's completely different from all this sort of stuff. Now, the way that you want to tie populism into it, you have someone in the form of Netanyahu who has weaponized this struggle and played a particular politics that has led to increased settlements, etc., and increased conflict, and stoked that and tried to cordon off, if you will, the Palestinians and the Palestinian problem per se. And now that this has resulted both in the tragedy of 10/7 and then also what's happened in Gaza, he has an interest very much like Putin in simply continuing this for as long as he can, because otherwise he's out on his neck.
And may go to jail.
So another thing about populists, they always seem to be at risk of going to jail as well, actually, or at least the successful ones. Because, no, remember, Sven and I spoke about this years ago. The original populist in this regard was Berlusconi.
Yeah, right. I once had a website called Trumpasconi.
Trumpasconi, right, exactly. Because, there's this Italian dude, he comes in from the media world, everyone's corrupt, only I can fix it,
That's right.
gets in, puts all these cronies into power, turns out he's got 15 charges that can send him to jail. Turns out, guess what? If you're a president, you're immune from prosecution. Where are we hearing this now?
Yeah.
Very strange, isn't it?
Well, actually, so a little story about Berlusconi that I think is relevant. I lived in Italy for 10 years, and I was having my hair cut by this older guy, and we started talking a little bit about politics, and he was a Berlusconi supporter. And I was trying to, gently figure out why. And he said the most pithy thing. He said, they're all crooks. Berlusconi is the best of the crooks. That's why he supported
That's
him.
a good one.
But let me say a little bit, if I may, about Netanyahu. As an institutionalist, this is something I think very few people are picking up on. Israel has a very, very fragmented electoral system. I think you need 0.5% of the vote to get a member into the Knesset. What that has meant over time is that crazy right-wing religious parties have been extremely important in the electoral success of any coalition. And what they've then done is basically taken that political power and translated it into economic power. So as you well know, if you're a very fundamentalist Jew, you don't have to serve in the military. You get all kinds of tax advantage. Basically, you are on the welfare tit and have lots and lots and lots and lots of children, right? And so their share of the population and their share of the political power has grown enormously, and Netanyahu has played on that very, very well.
Somebody's phone's going off.
Yeah.
Who's that? That's outrageous.
That's Steinmo.
And I turned it off.
Come on,
too.
Steinmo. Classes in session.
Shut your phone off,
I'm
for
gonna turn
goodness
it off.
sake.
Classes in session. Come on.